Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 23rd, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery here. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon. Here's the Pacific Ocean. Strong storm system moving up towards southern Alaska. Atmospheric river pointed at western BC as we speak. This is going to move down across the region, southern BC, Washington, Oregon, eventually on the day Friday. We'll take a look at those details coming up here. But what everybody wants to know about is the potential for some Arctic air moving down towards the Pacific Northwest in our extended forecast. We're going to take a great detailed look at that here coming up, so hang tight with me here. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery, you can see some of that new snowfall across northern portions of Washington, low clouds across the Willamette Valley here, some high clouds moving across the region as well. Some mountain wave clouds look like they're in nice formation here across Idaho and western Montana as well. Taking a look at yesterday's precipitation totals, you can see some places, Seattle south towards Tacoma got over an inch there. Some of the Washington coast, much of Oregon got between a quarter and an inch here. These blue dots, you see lesser amounts the further southeast you go here. Some better amounts towards Spokane, which fell in the form of snowfall yesterday as well as places like Wenatchee and some of the Cascades. Also, Snoqualmie Pass was closed yesterday as well for all the spinouts due to the snowfall there. Now, taking a look here, the holiday weekend coming up here. Later this weekend, we start to get some of that first shot of cold air here across the region. Spokane taking notice of that. Spokane National Weather Service, always with the good graphics here. Now you can see we're going to look at Southern California really quick here before we bounce back to the Pacific Northwest. Critical fire weather conditions down there. Santa Ana winds are going to be blowing. You can see these peak northeast wind gusts 45 to 65. Take a look at why that occurs. Here we're looking at California, Nevada, Arizona here. Put this into motion. You can clearly see this dome of high pressure slide down as we go on to Thanksgiving Day here and set up across the Intermountain West here. And this air is going to flow out over the terrain and through the gaps and canyons here all the way up to Southern California here and bring potential for some high winds across the area here. So that's what brings the Santa Ana, is this high pressure over the Intermountain West. Now taking a look here, this is as we go on into Thursday. You can clearly see this air flowing out through the gaps and canyons here across some of Southern California down through Mexico as well. Some of the deserts get pretty breezy in some areas towards southern Nevada as well. So just kind of a little shout out to Southern California there with their Santa Ana winds coming up. All right, so back to the Pacific Northwest here. This is precipitable water, and I want to show you guys this atmospheric river aimed at western BC that will slide down through Washington and Oregon. Here we are into Thursday morning, impacting Vancouver Island, hangs out there for several hours, eventually starts to slide through southwest BC into Washington, and finally move down through Oregon here as it weakens. As you can see, it really cut off there. And then you can see the cold front from the next batch of cold air trying to move our way here through this weekend. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. But now total precipitation. This is yesterday evening's European run. And you can see there the precipitation amounts for western BC, Vancouver Island. Pretty good amounts, Cascades of Washington, Mount Rainier North. Pretty rainy day coming up for Seattle, it looks like here, according to the Euro, down through the Willamette Valley. But you can see the precipitation cut off pretty rapidly as you get south through Oregon towards California. Nice rain shadow setting up across eastern Washington on the day and night of Friday. You can see the precipitation amounts pick back up across the mountains of BC, the Rockies of Idaho and Montana as we go. Now taking a look at the NAM tree cam for the next couple of days. So we go through this afternoon. You can see fairly nice temperatures all the way up towards southwest BC. Look at the warm temperatures down through Oregon if those low clouds can break out today. Southwest Oregon downright warm for November. Now taking a look here as we go on in through Thursday, check out some of these temperatures down through southwest Oregon. Could hit 70 in some spots out there. Warm temperatures all the way up through southern BC as well in advance of this frontal system that you can see here now moving across the area on Friday morning here on the NAM 3KM. But another fairly warm day, Willamette Valley south through southwest Oregon here on the day Friday. So enjoy this while it lasts, because we are definitely going to have a change in the temperatures coming up here through the extended, which we'll look at here now coming up. This is yesterday afternoon's European run. This is the Northern Hemisphere. The North Pole is here. Here's Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon, Hawaiian Islands, Pacific Ocean. There's Russia over there hogging all the cold air. But now look at this lobe right here. This is coming all the way across Russia. It comes across western Alaska, and it plows down across the Gulf of Alaska and through BC into Washington and Oregon here as we go through this weekend on into early next week. And then watch this secondary polar lobe here move across the Yukon, out over the Gulf of Alaska here through BC. Some very cold air showing up on some of these model runs coming up here, folks. Then the European has another polar lobe moving across the Yukon and northern BC, bringing some very interesting weather here going up through the extended. This is 10 days out right now, but there are several polar lobes that have their aim at the Pacific Northwest here. So some interesting weather is coming up here. So here we're looking at the same map here, but this is the 12Z GFS hot off the presses here. You can see this frontal system come across British Columbia here, sag south across Washington, Oregon, then that colder air all the way across Russia, Western Alaska, Gulf of Alaska, makes its way down the coastline into BC, Washington, and Oregon as we go through early next week. And then that second cold polar lobe kind of has my attention there with some even colder air moving down across southern British Columbia towards Washington, Oregon as well on through next week. Then they start to differ a bit here. The GFS building a ridge, as you can see, over the west coast of North America here, but then bringing some colder air in through the extended. But that's getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves right there. Now, taking a look at Spokane temperatures here, 6-hour min temperatures, you can clearly see when this Arctic air mass arrives here as we go on into early next week, some pretty cold temperatures showing up in some of these ensemble runs. I mean, look at these negative teens, negative 20s even in some of these instances here. And you can see really every ensemble is cold as we go on in through early December here. This is looking at Kamloops, interior British Columbia. Very high confidence in this Arctic air mass sagging down across British Columbia as of right now. You can see this really at about the morning of the 28th. This really cold air starts to make its way into the interior British Columbia here. Will this equal some snowfall chances down towards western Washington, the Willamette Valley, southwest BC? That's yet to be seen here, but it's not a bad start. So now taking a look here, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, 24-hour snowfall totals. You can see some of the ensemble runs do have some significant snowfalls here for SeaTac. Some of them do not have much snowfall at all, but you can see there is the potential for some snowfall here with the arrival of this Arctic air. Just wanted to point that out here. Now taking a look at North America, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon, 850 millibar temperatures. And this is the ensemble mean here. So this is the average of all the ensemble runs. There goes the frontal system. Then the colder air starts to arrive this weekend. Arctic air settles over British Columbia here. Second polar lobe moves down as we go through mid next week. Look at this very cold air here. So good model agreement in the ensembles here on the European as we go through mid next week there. This is showing last night's runs. This is 6 hours in advance of the one I just showed you. You can see that frontal system move down. Good model agreement on the arrival of that cold air and the Arctic air settling down over the region here. And then you can see the secondary lobe start to develop at the very end of this run here. So stick with me towards the end of this run. We're going to check out the 12Z Euro. It should be running right now. Now taking a look here, this is a 2-meter temperature anomaly in Celsius here. You can see the very warm temperatures across some of northern Canada here. Let's put this into motion. Yesterday afternoon's run, you can spot the arrival of this cold air moving down the west coast. And look at this, central BC gets really chilly here by Monday afternoon. You can see Alaska and the Yukon really locked in there too. This gets all the way down into Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, all well below average. And look at this secondary polar lobe. We've got the scale is pegged here, negative 16 below Celsius, moving all the way down towards Washington and Oregon here, folks. So it's exciting to look at right now. It's still a little ways out there, so we're kind of still waiting and seeing before we really start to sound the alarm. But the confidence is really increasing here in a very cold air mass settling down over British Columbia here through on in through next week. This is the Canadian as of this morning here, 2-meter temperature anomaly again. So as we go through this weekend, you can clearly see that cold air sweeping down through Washington, Oregon, all the way down through California here. But look at Alaska and BC, portions of Washington, Montana, really socked in. Secondary polar lobe setting up as well. Very cold temperatures. The scale is pegged for some of these areas here, as you can see. And then maybe even another polar lobe after that. Look at some of these temperatures showing up. Just an incredible looking cold streak coming up here. But we have to have some caution still. This can change. Things can still change at this point. But right now, confidence is increasing in very cold air moving down the west coast of North America. This is a 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here. This goes through early November, so confidence is increasing here. This was put out yesterday, and the models have been uptrending a little bit since then, so we're probably going to get even darker shades of blue showing up here in the next couple of days. Looking at the 8 to 14 day map, showing similar here, below average for the Pacific Northwest. Now let's take a look at the 12Z European hot off the presses here, folks. It should be mostly finished running. You've got yesterday afternoon's European on the right. This is the 12Z, brand new, hot off the presses on the left. You can see this frontal system and atmospheric river moving across BC down towards Washington. Then the arrival of the cooler air, pretty good model agreement here between both runs here, moving down across British Columbia and Washington as we go on in through early next week. And then you can see this much more sinister looking polar lobe reaching out on both model runs here. Now watch this. Yesterday afternoon was pretty chilly here, and now look at this thing. Wow, that is a pretty nasty Arctic blast here for the Pacific Northwest if this were to verify on this morning's European run there, folks. So I don't want to go too much further out than that, but you can see continued attacks from the polar lobes, possibly here as we go through the extended as well on the European run. But look at this. This is really a perfect trajectory for lowland snow here in through Seattle, maybe even down towards Portland, Southwest BC here on this morning's run. So very impressive. This is the first time I'm looking at it here too, so we're kind of playing along together. So yeah, we may just do a live stream tomorrow morning as well, Thanksgiving, before everybody gets their food cooked and they start eating and whatnot. Maybe we'll do a live stream during the day tomorrow. We can do some Q&As and we can watch the 12Z European run-in come together, something to that extent. So anyway, yeah, it is definitely looking like confidence is increasing here for some very cold air to come down across western portions of North America here. And of course, these individual systems we'll have to watch day at a time and see what kind of impacts we're going to have here across Pacific Northwest. But yes, atmospheric river moving across BC is going to slide south through the day tomorrow, actually tomorrow through BC, then Friday and on through Washington and Oregon here. And then the colder air starts arriving here in multiple waves, probably 1, 2, maybe even 3 polar lobes taking swings at the Pacific Northwest here as we go on in through the extended forecast here. So exciting times coming up here, folks. We're going to continue to watch this, of course, day by day. We'll break it down day by day. We'll look for any changes and what kind of impacts we can expect. But winter definitely looks like it may arrive here at the end of November into early December. So we will do this again tomorrow. I may do a live stream tomorrow as well, and I'll probably still do a video briefing even if I do a live stream also. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. You can check back today on Twitter for any updates. Seattle Weather Guy, you can find me there. And let's do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.